What do you see for yourself, 5 years down the road, 50 years down the road? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And I'm pretty sure it's not clean margins on your restorations.
Right? That's so good. You should put that on a t-shirt.
It's the relationships. It's the people that you affected. It's the lives that you changed.
If you're comfortable, you're not growing. Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I am the CEO of SMC National. We provide predictable new patient flow for dental practices and groups just like yours. And today, I got a special guest. If you're online, you see his content everywhere. And he recently just went to Africa, and I'm really excited to talk through some of the things. He has some beliefs inside of the dental industry that are very, very unique, and I'm excited to talk through those and figure out why he feels so differently than everybody else. And his name is Dr. Tim Richardson. Dr. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited about this too. I will say your podcast is one of my favorites that I listen to, so I'm excited to be able to be on here and share.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. I'm always, anytime somebody's like, I listen to your podcast, it always blows my mind. I'm like, people actually listen. So that's so cool. That's really humbling.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, I want to just kick us off with this. So you have, how many practices are you guys at? And tell me a little bit just about your organizational structure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So I started Acorn Dentistry for Kids here in Oregon 5 years ago. We now have 6 clinics. Those are all de novo clinics. We do have support services off-site, billing, HR, call center, all the support services. So we kind of, from the beginning, have acted bigger than we are each step of the way, just knowing that we wanted to be able to grow quickly and take care of these kids in our community.
Awesome. And what does grow quickly mean to you? Like, where are you trying to get to? Because that is, to have all that stuff centralized already at 6 practices is moving really fast.
Yeah, we started it really at 2 practices. We started building that out. But we don't have just an arbitrary number that we are chasing. We're in the Northwest Oregon area. And so I imagine we'll probably have somewhere around a dozen clinics to service this area. And then we're going to make a decision on, do we want to just hold and do that really well? Or do we want to keep growing? And that's a decision that we'll have to make here in the next few years. Okay.
So I want to jump into this. So one of the things that I love that you have a really strong take on is you guys don't believe in managers.
Right.
So walk me through, like, why don't you guys believe in managers?
Oh, I don't know. I guess that's the Simon Sinek in me that is talking. But I've never really appreciated the traditional management hierarchy structure. I know there are good managers out there, but that seems to be the abnormality, whereas the norm is, I don't really like my manager, and we know that your relationship with that manager person has a huge influence on your job satisfaction and your level of engagement. And so at the beginning, we said, no office manager, not going to do it. And I honestly hadn't met a good office manager since I had been practicing. And so we said, we're just going to have strong doctor leaders. And that worked well for 2 clinics. And then it didn't work as well anymore.
Yep.
And so we got rid of management, but we also got rid of leadership as a whole. And a lot of people, the demographic that we work with, the young generation, a lot of them just aren't ready for that self-leadership, and they need that guidance. They need that support and just the encouragement. And so we transitioned to what we call the clinic coach. So it's basically our version of an office manager. The way I think of it is a manager is going to be more concerned about the processes being done by the people, whereas a clinic coach is more concerned about the people that are doing the processes. And it's been really interesting. When we first introduced this new role, we actually had a lot of turnover because there was more accountability and more expectations. And yes, you do actually have to show up on time, those types of discussions.
Yeah.
Some of the doctors just didn't want to have those conversations, understandably. So we went through that transition process.
So that's a hard transition because there's nobody else doing this, right? You can't go to another dental practice and be like, tell me how you set up your coaching people that run your practices. So when you do something like that that's so radically different, and the first response is, well, we quit. We don't want to work with you anymore. Yeah. How do you continue on with something like that?
Just keep hiring. I mean, that's really all it is. Just keep swimming.
Well, do you think that has to do with just like you believed that this would work at its core, or was there something else that was driving you that you knew that this was just the right path?
I just knew. I really did. I live so much in the future. I'm one of those hyper visionaries, and really I get frustrated with, why can't my dream happen tomorrow? And some of those gut instinct feelings, that you have, I'm sure a lot of the founder entrepreneurs can relate to that. You just know in your core. And I knew that people, even though they maybe weren't necessarily voicing it, in general, people wanted something different. And we've seen this in the business world, this shift from managing to, some people call it coaching is the new leadership. And we definitely are seeing that in the last year. Yeah, really just the last 12 months when we've fully been implementing this coaching culture is now we don't really have anyone, we're not really firing anybody anymore. I can't remember the last time. It's been maybe 6 months since we've let somebody go, and we have 100 people in our organization right now. It's because it's turned into a conversation with our team members instead of all right, performance review time. Here's what you need to improve on. Oh, by the way, you're doing this well, but here's what you need to improve on, or else. All right, strike one, strike two, you're gone. We don't have those types of conversations anymore. Now we do look at performance, but it's more as an observation and a conversation of where do you see the biggest opportunity for yourself based on these guidelines, these criteria that we've established. And now it's more of a self-awareness discussion, and the individual self-identifies either, yes, I need to work on this and I want help and support, and we reach what's called an agreement. And the coach is just supporting that person in what they've agreed to do themselves, not what they were told to do.
Yeah, more buy-in.
And so what we have happen is people just opt out rather than us let them go. They just say, you know what, I'm really just not up for this. I'm not ready for it. And that's okay.
That's okay, yeah.
But it's not a surprise. It's really a mutual discussion, a mutual decision at that point. So it's a much smoother transition.
So I know you come from a medical background. I know your dad was an operator, an optometrist. Why didn't you go down? Like, why were you so dead set on like, hey, I'm just going to build a DSO right off the box and not just be like, hey, I'm going to be a dentist who runs a single location, kind of the traditional model? Yeah.
So my father was single doctor, optometrist, and I think just about every single family trip we went on, he would make some comment along the lines of, I'm not making any money and I'm still paying the bills. And that just got ingrained into my mind. But he also taught us, be your own boss, make sure you have control, have a voice on what the workplace looks like. And he stayed small so that he could keep that control. And I knew that I wanted group practice. I didn't know what that looked like, or, the terminology. I didn't know what a DSO was. I knew what corporate dentistry was, and I said, I'm never doing that. But, now I understand a little bit more about what that means and some of those principles that are used by the large organizations. And so we do use some of those principles to be able to grow and take care of our people. Technically we're a DSO. Anytime you have one associate, you're technically a DSO, right? You're supporting another doctor that's not an owner, and we have support services, but that's intentionally done, not just because we were told that's what you're supposed to do, but because we believe it, and we have seen that allows us to provide a better patient and parent experience once they come into the office, because you don't have multiple people multitasking with the different roles. We're able to, in a way, kind of subspecialize within the office. And parents don't care. They care if you answer the phone or not.
Yep.
They care if you get the billing right or not, right? They care if you take care of their kid and make it comfortable and fun for them. So we look to Disney a lot for inspiration of experience-based, not procedure-based appointments.
That's awesome. And so one of the things that I was actually just at a conference, and one of the topics that I heard brought up was, hey, if you really want to increase your EBITDA, don't centralize everything too early, right? Because it adds major cost
That's true.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So
Yeah.
how did you, so like, how are you approaching that? Right. Cause you centralized really early on. It kind of puts you in a position where you kind of have to grow, right? Cause you got to pay for all those people, but it does allow you to also take care of people better in the office. Cause if Susan at the front desk is not answering the phones and doing billing, guess what that means? She gets to focus on the patient, and all the way, that's true all the way through in the practice. So how do you, and then also I caught that nuance that you said, we use some of, I didn't want to be a corporate dentist, but I understand now some of the principles that they use. So like, how are you balancing that? Or you're not, you're technically a DSO, but you're not thinking like a DSO, but you're using some of the, the techniques of these DSOs, but you don't want to be corporate dentist. And I get the struggle that dentists have with that, but how are you compartmentalizing all of that and like breaking that down?
Yeah. So I worked for a large DSO, national, one of the largest. I won't say who it is, but I remember when I showed up, looking at the schedule template, and it said, here's a $500 block, here's a $700 block, and that's how you were to schedule the appointments. And I understand why, right? Because the decision makers are looking at spreadsheets and numbers and P&Ls, right? And that's what they have to base their decisions off of. And I never wanted to be that way. So we're constantly changing our schedule templates. So we do have templates. That's the principle. But it's based on what the patients need, not what the P&L needs. And I just know that in the long run, it's the long game. I'm not looking to sell this in 2 years, or 3 years, or 5 years. Right? It's intended to be a doctor-owned entity indefinitely. And so we're more focused on establishing our brand of who we are, not maximizing our P&Ls, our EBITDA. I mean, our EBITDA, I'm not a numbers guy. I should be more of a numbers guy, but it's negligible. Let's just call it that. But that's not the focus.
Yeah.
We're constantly
and it's a made up number anyway. It's like equity in your house. If you're not planning on selling, it doesn't matter how much equity you have in your house. It's a make believe number until you want to sell. Then all of a sudden it becomes more important.
But what that does is we are primed where we get to a certain point, and I think it's going to be probably around 10 clinics where all of a sudden it just explodes.
Yeah.
And so it's like I remember hearing an analogy of a certain type of bamboo, right? It takes years to just even get above ground, and all of a sudden it grows feet per day. And that's kind of how I see what we are working on, is we get that foundation established, we get our systems in place, we get really good training processes in place, so some of these larger organization principles. And then very, very soon, it's just going to shoot out, and we can do as much or as little as we want, but we're going to be able to do it well and not have to keep recreating the wheel, which often I hear happens as you continue to grow at scale.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're planning much earlier on. Because most of the time when people open up practices, they're not planning about how they're going to integrate that into a platform or anything like that. So you're figuring that out much earlier on, which is really cool. Now your title, your official title is a CBO, so you're Chief Business Officer. Is that right?
Sure.
That's what you put on your thing. Or are you the Yeah. Are you CEO? Is that right?
CEO, visionary, founder, coach.
Okay.
All of the above. Yeah.
Okay. This is why I was asking, because so I know you have a COO inside of your practice, inside of your practices as well. So how did you kind of split that? Like, when did you know, okay, I need to get highly skilled people around me that are going to be able to focus on things that maybe aren't my strength? When did that light come on, or did you already know? Or you always know that?
April of 2020.
April 2020. I was in a dark alley.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, COVID had just, with weeks prior, had set in. One of our clinics remained open just for emergency care, but we weren't really doing a whole lot. Most people were not working. And I was sitting in a virtual conference and listening to Alex Sharfin was the keynote speaker.
I was in that conference. Yep.
Yeah. And he went through what he calls the billionaire code. And this was really a light bulb moment for me, where clinically I'm a super producer. Like, I can do so much dentistry. It's so easy. It flows. Got a good team, but I was frustrated by why can't I scale that? And we had good doctors, not bad doctors, but the way I wanted to take care of patients wasn't, I should say the efficiency wasn't going as well as I wanted it to. And I felt like I was just getting spread thin, too little butter over too much bread. And he said, before you go right, you have to look left. You have to make sure that your systems and your operations are in place before you move on to the next phase of business growth. And I realized my strong point is not looking back, it's looking forward. And I needed someone to keep looking backwards to make sure that we are really laying a good foundation, which we didn't have at that time. And so I brought someone on that I already met a few months prior, and I said, how quick can you get here? That day, Friday afternoon, I said, how quick can you get here? And it just worked out. And we're a completely different organization because of that.
Yeah.
So my strengths paired with another person's strengths complement each other really, really well.
That's so cool the way you broke that down. It's so simple. You're like, I look forward, they look back. Because a lot of times it's so confusing, right? When you're in the middle of it, it's like, wait, I'm good at this, but not this. And you're trying to figure that out. And you don't know what you don't know when you're starting a business, right? It doesn't matter if you're a great dentist or a great marketer. And that's one of the things, the kind of the frameworks that I've really been adopting lately that's helped me is you have the skill set, the master, right? You had to become a really good dentist. For you to have the vision that you had to become good at dentistry. Yeah. And then you have the entrepreneur phase. That's where you figure out how to actually make money off of like what you're doing, and like, okay, I can charge more than it takes for me to do this procedure. And it's a business. Like it's a happy exchange, right? Happening there. And then there's this leader phase. And it sounds like you went through that. And that leadership phase is really more about, okay, I can't do it. There's nothing. And what do I need to get around me to be able to get to where I want to go? And the tricky part for me was like, I thought because I was good at marketing, that made me a good leader. Like, of course I'm qualified to lead this company. Right. I'm good at marketing. And I think I talk to a lot of dentists that go through that too. Is like, of course I'm the leader of this company. I'm a great dentist. I'm one of the best dentists. But that doesn't qualify or make you a good leader. It's like a completely different skill set that you have to go learn. And some people are more natural at it than others. But that once I've kind of adopted that framework, I love that. And I'm going to steal that, looking forward or looking back. I mean, if you have no one looking back in the business, then you're going to be in big trouble. So I love the way you broke that down.
And kind of going back to the whole manager coach discussion, that's why so many managers aren't very good managers. It's because they were really good at doing a job, really good at being a dental assistant or a front office team member, right? And so, hey, you're great at that job. Let's promote you to office manager. And they don't actually know how to lead people. They know how to do a process. And so we put so much energy into leadership training for our coaches and what we call team captains instead of lead dental assistants. Also some slight variations there. Front office has a team captain, and there's a lot of leadership development. We kind of think of it like a leadership factory within our clinics, within our locations.
That's so cool.
And that's how we'll be able to continue to scale and keep.
And what do you take them through? Like, what kind of leadership training do you take them through?
A lot of it at the very beginning is the Arbinger Institute. So we have all team members, their second day, they read a book, Leadership and Self-Deception. I know that one's a fairly common one nowadays. And then there's a 2-day outward mindset training, a workshop that we have our leadership people go through. Our coaches, after about 6 months, they then get trained to be a trainer in outward mindset, and now train the rest of the team in those principles. And so that's a big one, is just self-awareness, empathy, curiosity, humility, right? And coaching. So we brought in an expert coach, Chris Westfall.
Is he inside of dental or somebody from outside?
No, outside of dental. He's coached people who have gone on to Shark Tank and other shows like that. He does a lot of business pitch training for people that are trying to pitch their ideas to investors. And so he came and did coach training. He's written some books that we've also used.
And what's his name again?
Chris Westfall. So he's a business coach, author, speaker.
That's awesome. I'm gonna look him up. And then I know you guys.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I also know that you guys use EOS as well. Do you use EOS with project management, or how do you guys structure that?
I'd say we're most similar to EOS, although not exact. I found there, at least for us, there were some limitations with that. And so we use a version of EOS, mingle in a little bit of holacracy, which is something that most people probably have not heard of. It's more of kind of a shared leadership business model. We use Asana, for task project management. We use Lattice it's a coaching software program.
What was that last software?
Lattice.
What does that do?
Lattice. So that is for coaching. It's how to keep track of personal development for all of our team members.
So is it more like for one-on-one?
Yeah.
So it's okay. So it's like a structure to have one-on-one meetings. What is it? Yeah. How does it help with the coaching people up?
Documentation. That's the biggest thing, is just knowing what goals the individual set, being able to follow up, be able to support them, be able to review them each month at a minimum. We also do our engagement surveys through Lattice. They have a really good, very easy way to do that.
That's awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I really struggle with, because I'm a hyper visionary like you, right? Like I'm already like living in 10 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy for me. Like I don't even have to try at it. But what I've learned now that I'm getting older and wiser is like, not everybody else operates that way, right? I used to think that everybody thought the same way I did. It took me many years to figure out that, oh no, most people aren't like me. So one of the things that I've realized that I struggle with is a lot of this like coaching and getting in and looking back. Have you found that it hard for you to be that kind of coach, or do you have people who are helping you, or like or is it more easy for you? Like, am I just strange in being a visionary and coaching is a little bit harder? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh no, I get out of the way. That's my solution. So I focus on what my strengths are, and I try and support those things that I'm not as good at. So our COO, Matt, he is fantastic. I mean, he's very organized. He remembers things. He sends me reminder emails on things that I need to follow up on, and he's very, very thorough with his work. And so he largely takes the primary role with making sure that the coaches are getting their coaching training and that they're being supported in that way. And I bring in more of the cultural aspect of kind of the purpose and the vision for it. So I kind of tell the story of what we're trying to accomplish, but I don't really tell them how to do it. That's where Matt and the coaches really come in.
So you're like the pretty paint on the front and the decoration, and he's more of the nuts and bolts on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working really well.
Yeah, that's a good combination. I have similar support around like people that business partners, and also just people inside of our team that really help with that. What are your thoughts? How do you, and this may not even be a big deal for you guys, depending on your structure, I'm not entirely sure. Where are you guys at with the whole recession thing and Q1, Q2? Like, what are you thinking that's going to happen to you guys and just dental as a whole?
Honestly, I don't pay all that much attention to it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm aware, but I will say that, if there's a recession, because we take care of all kids in the community, we do see a lot of Medicaid. And thinking back to when Obamacare was implemented, our business back then, before I owned Acorn, I owned 3 other clinics that I sold, and our clinics kind of exploded with Obamacare because so many kids qualified to be on state Medicaid insurance. So I guess we're prepared. If there's a downturn, Medicaid, I assume, is still going to be there in some form or another. In fact, as time goes on, depending on, who's elected, and that may only increase. Yeah. And where the boutique clinics may struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, that's usually when the recessions hit. That's why I thought that I thought you'd have an answer along those lines, because I know with Yeah, when recessions hit, it's usually the specialty stuff that's over a couple thousand bucks. Those are the services that take major hits. And if you have a whole practice built around that, obviously it could be really. 2008 was brutal to those kind of groups.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so then what do you think about? So one of the things I've noticed is that it feels like the employee market that we had during COVID, where the employees were setting the tone, setting the pay scale, and setting, I don't want to work as much, I want to work less. And people are having to hire more hygienists or more dental assistants and more doctors, not even necessarily they're not working more, it's just spreading out their schedules, things like that. Now we're kind of seeing that move back to the employer market. Lines and applicants seem to be getting longer. More people are getting laid off. How is that impacting you guys, if at all?
I think we may be a little bit trailing in that regard where we are, where thankfully we don't have to worry about hygienists. We just have expanded function dental assistants. So that's really saved us. But assistants in our area are hard to find. And so we, thankfully, before COVID hit, we had just started our own internal dental assisting program. And I would say that has saved our business by having that. And so that's been working really well. About half of our dental assistants are in some version, some form of that, participated in our own program. But there does seem to be a little more of an uptick on certified dental assistants that are applying.
So you are seeing the uptick in it?
Just a little bit, or maybe we just got better with our recruiting. But I think it's probably
everybody I've talked to said, I have noticed over the last couple of weeks, I've seen an uptick, and some people are even like, I've seen a 2x or a 3x uptick. You know what I mean? And for some positions, so.
Yeah, but anything that doesn't require certifications, like we don't have any trouble finding people. There's definitely some longer lines there.
Got it. That's awesome. And then what is your forecast for just dental as a whole? Where do you think the dental industry is going right now?
I don't know. I think I am always an optimist. I think just more awareness, more education, more emphasis. I think, at least for us, we saw a huge backlog of dental work that was needed during the COVID pause. It was about 3 months that we weren't really doing any preventive, maintenance. It was all emergency care. Things that weren't a big deal turned into a big deal in a short amount of time. And I think unfortunately, I think that raised a lot of awareness, but unfortunately, so it's kind of a two-edged sword. I'm hopeful that trend will continue, that people understand the importance of good oral care as part of your whole care.
And then what are your, I'm going to totally change gears on you. What are your top 5 business books or podcasts that are really impacting you right now?
Books, Leadership and Self-Deception. Absolutely.
That's a good book. I always warn people, be careful reading that book because it's going to change your life. It'll.
Right. Yeah. You're going to all of a sudden have so many regrets from the course of your whole life up to that point.
Not just in business either, in all of your personal life and everything.
All your relationships. Yeah. Definitely is a big one. One that I just recently finished is The Ride of a Lifetime. Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, former Disney CEO, who's now, again, the CEO, just was put in. Just really inspired by his work ethic and his vision for what Disney could become. He kept the Disney brand, but really transformed the organization at the same time. So that one's kind of fresh on my mind. Another one, Radical Candor, Crucial Conversations. Those two, kind of a 1-2 punch, kind of more actionable.
Yeah.
Podcasts. Again, I really like your podcast, how deep you go into different principles. I really like, it's kind of a silly one, but Bruise and Tiny Teeth. Casey is a pediatric dentist, a young pediatric dentist. And I mean, really, he's just interviewing people to learn for himself as he's developing his own young practice as a new doctor, new owner. But just really good nuts and bolts for anyone who's looking to either start a practice or has just recently started a practice. Just really.
Is he more pediatric focused, or is it just?
Yeah, it's pedo.
That's awesome.
And then I would say probably my favorite podcast consistently is called Coaching for Leaders. Dave Stakowiak, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Coaching for Leaders is fantastic. he's got, I don't know, 500 or 600 episodes now at this point. But really about how to lead, not how to manage, but how to lead, and how to be the leader that people want to follow.
I'm just taking notes here. I'm going to check that one out. Well, that's awesome. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you that we should talk about?
Oh boy. I mean, I could talk about Kenya if you want.
Yeah. Talk about Kenya and talk about your trip there. I saw you posting about that.
Yeah, I mean, just really, it was my second time to Kenya, but this time was a little more in-depth focus. Just, it's amazing how fortunate we are in, the modern first world communities. Just the poverty that exists around most of the world, really. And just getting to know people that are trying to survive every day. And so we're going to one of the more impoverished areas of Kenya, of Africa, to see if we can start helping to initiate a cultural change. And I actually brought 2 of my daughters there, my high school daughters.
Oh, wow.
And I think them being there was more impactful than me being there, because they saw, girls especially need the most help in places like that, to have hope. And they were able to provide an example of a young girl having goals and being able to speak up for herself and say no and actually have dreams for herself. And so, yeah, I think you don't have to go around the world to make a contribution to have an impact. There's plenty in our own backyards. Yeah. But, for us, dentistry is great, but it's just the vehicle for the impact that we want to have. And so I would just encourage those listening to really take it from 2 visionaries, I guess, is, what do you see for yourself, 5 years down the road, 50 years down the road? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And I'm pretty sure it's not clean margins on your restorations. Right?
That's so good. You should put that on a t-shirt.
It's the relationships. It's the people that you affected. It's the lives that you changed. Sometimes because of the dentistry, but sometimes because of what dentistry allows you to do. And so I love talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This is very, very insightful. I know it's going to help a lot of people decide which road to go down, because we work with a lot of people who are at that 3 to 5 location, or we not work with, just they listen and they're tuning in and they're listening, like how are they doing it? And so I love that you're taking a unique path, but at the same time, you're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
You're saying, okay, what can I learn from different people, even if I don't agree with exactly the way that they're doing it? And that's how you're going to end up with something really special, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe just one other last thing, if we have a minute. Yep. So Coach Chris and I, we actually are partnering together, and so we've developed basically a 6-month curriculum, including a 3-day on-site workshop, to help organizations develop and implement a coaching culture within the organization. And so that's something, if anyone's interested in that.
Is it dental specific, or is it kind of for all businesses, or how are you guys?
Yeah, right now we're focusing on dental just because that's what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
And so we're tag teaming. We both bring strengths to something like this. But if anyone's interested, it's had such a big impact on our team, and I'm really excited to hopefully be able to share that.
Are you going to be posting about that? I haven't seen it. Maybe I've just missed it, or.
Yeah, I got a little sidetracked with my Kenya trip. But yeah, I'm going to get back to posting on that.
Okay. Post on it, and then tag me or forward it to me, so that way I can share it and get it out there. And then we'll make sure that this podcast obviously highlights it as well. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a game changer, honestly. That's awesome. And I also added, I'm going to contact I'm going to contact Chris and see if I check in with him, because it sounds like a guy that I want to know and maybe even work with and help me out. Yeah, one hour with him will change how you think, for sure. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad we got to do this. One thing I want to ask you, in 12 months, or roughly, I want to check back in with you. I want to do another episode. I want to document all of your growth and all the stuff that worked and all the stuff that didn't work. Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'll have lots of both. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.